Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course from New Earth One Network. This is designed exclusively for your higher self connection and embodiment. Welcome. We are here talking about shadow work and body work and healing this, integrating this, truly alchemy within our body. This is called the Yothera Method with our founder, Jessica Maitri. Hello, Jessica. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks. Yes, thanks for having me.
This is something that you have created from your incredible foundation in the healing arts industry. And this is really yoga therapy. Can you go into how you created this Yothera method?
Yes. Yeah, I have been a mental health therapist, a clinical social worker for about 11 years now, and was doing traditional psychotherapy for the first 5 or 6 years of my practice. And then went on to become a yoga therapist, energy healer, and intuitive, and all of these other abilities started to come online. And I was able to begin integrating more of a holistic approach into the mental health work that I was doing. And from that, I think it's a safe space to speak to, downloads. I started really receiving information about this method, this modality that has really come through me. And that's truly how I feel. I feel like it just kind of came through me as a birth in a way. So I wouldn't say I created it, I just birthed it.
Yes, listening to your inner guidance and just knowing what is right. Can you share a little bit about your own healing process that led you into these modalities, that led you into mental health? And did you have any catalytic moment in your awakening process along the way?
So many. I think the first thing that's coming up is I was raised religious. I was raised LDS, Mormon. And at the age of 25, I left the church, which is actually a whole nother story. But that would be one of the catalysts for me, was leaving religion, and all of the programs that come with leaving something like that also started to, come through me and want my attention and ask for healing and ask for integration. And so I naturally found yoga, and then I added that into my mental health work. And then I was really doing my own healing first, and then was able to offer that to my clients. So that was one of the big catalysts, I would say.
To really go against all of the familial conditioning and expectations and all of that. So as you found yoga and now you've integrated it with shadow work in the body.
Yeah. Again, I'll just say, when we think of yoga, people tend to think of poses, and yoga therapy is more of a deep awareness of actually what's happening in the unconscious mind that's expressing itself through the body. So sometimes that requires movement and things like that, but most of the time it's getting into the unconscious mind and repatterning some of those programs. So the Yothera Method is a 3-phase inner alchemical journey And the first phase is the mind. And this is where we use archetypes. I have identified 12 Jungian archetypes that we work with to identify these different parts of ourselves in the body. And then we also do some work around blind spots, defense mechanisms, really just diving into the shadow. All the stuff that is the mind programs, basically, that we want to, I call it your old story. And once we get really familiar with what the old stories are that we want to uproot and change, then we move into the body. So that's phase 2. And we take this old story into the body, and through the body and heart, we're able to transmute this old story into a new story, which is phase 3. So phase 3 is being witnessed in your new story by a group, by a safe space, which is really a huge part of the healing process, is being witnessed.
So let's talk about the 12 archetypes, because those are fascinating.
According to Carl Jung, it's we all have these within us, and they express at different times and in different ways. But according to him, we all have the judge, we all have the victim, the villain, the prostitute, right? And so I've, for the Yothera method, I just narrowed it down to 12 because there's hundreds of archetypes out there. But these 12 are just specifically the ones that show up the most in our life.
When we're talking about the shadow, this would be all of the things that trigger us. And so how do archetypes fit in, or how are they responsible for those triggers?
The way that I've experienced the archetypes in the body is when we have a trigger, a lot of times that trigger doesn't necessarily have to do with what we think. We think it's the person that just yelled at us or honked at us or something. But what's really happening is life through that person is actually just mirroring back to us something that was already there, a wound. And so we can focus in on that wound. And a lot of times that's in a specific area of the body. So like the gut, for example, and then we give it a voice. And so sometimes during a trigger, let's say our gut clenches, I will have people then express, like give it a voice. Whose voice is that? What does it have to say? And then from there, a lot of times an archetype will kind of emerge from letting the body have a voice. So, and then some stories too, right? So maybe nobody likes me, or I'm not worthy. And maybe that's the victim archetype that's speaking, or maybe it's the prostitute or the judge. So, yeah.
As we're taking responsibility for all of the triggers, when we give it a voice, the archetype emerges. Can you give another example of that?
Yeah, sure. Let me see. A really common example would be, it's funny, I just cleared my throat, but a lot of times people have blockage in the throat. Yes. And so when you really give that space some room and a voice, a lot of times the archetype that shows up there is the victim that maybe was shut down. Sometimes it's the prostitute that devalues themselves and doesn't hold their value, and so they, whatever that looks like for that person, it's truly really individualistic how these archetypes are showing up in people's bodies. The drama triangle, I call it, it's the villain, victim, hero, or that's the dynamic we're all playing out anyway right now. So that's the easiest one to start with, is the villain, victim, hero, drama triangle. And a lot of times we can identify with one of those three at almost every point in our life with most interactions. Like, how do we see the other person? Do we see them as being the villain and we're the victim, or are we trying to save somebody, right? The hero, or are we wanting someone to save us? So that's an easy way to start working with the archetypes, I think.
So as we're working with those archetypes, maybe we could go through a short little process and see what that would be like within ourselves to identify?
Yeah, I'd be happy to guide through a short exercise. So anybody that's listening, this will maybe be five or so minutes, but go ahead and close your eyes and find a comfortable position. And just begin to take some deeper inhales and longer exhales. And as you exhale, you can imagine a softening of any areas of the body that feel tense in this moment. As you exhale, you can imagine a body scan, scanning your awareness, starting at the top of your head and scanning down with the exhale. And as you're moving your awareness down your body, just begin to notice what's here today. You don't have to understand it, just noticing. Noticing any sensations, emotions. Past the jaw, the throat, the heart. Softening the back of the heart. Down into the torso and the gut, the solar plexus area. And noticing as you're scanning down what stands out to you, any areas that stand out to you now. Exhaling down into the hips and the low back. And the legs. And the feet. Arms and hands. And notice what comes to mind right away when you identify an area that's really standing out today. An area that's wanting attention. Just notice what first comes to mind. And once you've identified that area, send your breath there. So breathe into that area of the body. And as you invite the breath there, you'll notice that it begins to open. And as it softens and opens, you may begin to see colors or images, textures, sometimes memories. And you might ask this area of the body, what do you want me to know? And sometimes it doesn't make logical sense. So just be open to however your body wants to share. What do you want me to know now? And if you feel called to speak out loud, if you're listening to this, you can hear your own voice back. You can just give this area of your body a voice. You can make a tone or even a movement that can help this area express whatever it needs to express to you. And when that feels complete for you, just take a moment to thank your body. And just blink the eyes open whenever you're ready.
This is inner yoga. This is tuning in and really communing with the body. That was beautiful. You know, as we breathed into it personally, that was exquisite. That was really palpable. And that's wonderful. And I trust that others are feeling that. And the message I got was relax. It was a little bit of worry or something that was very mental. And it was like, just relax and let that go. So I don't know what archetype that was, but maybe it was the hero having to fix everything.
You just did it just right there. Yeah, that's the next step would be to kind of figure that out or be with that. With the archetype.
So you've been doing this for some time and working with so many people. Can you share any transformational stories or some incidences of profound shifts that you witnessed?
Oh my goodness, so many.
Yeah.
Let's see. One of the main things that I notice, people that go through, I have a 10-week group, and then I have a certification program. Both of those, I would say the 10-week group specifically, people that they start one way on week 1 are completely different by week 10. And an example of that would be a woman who is a therapist, a very linear, clinical therapist. And she thought that she would get some CEUs, right? She joined my group for CEUs, which is very logical. I'm happy to offer that. But by the end of that group, she had taken up playing the harp. Like she was learning to play the harp and was singing and painting and doing all of these things that were more from an embodied heart feeling space, which is a big part of, we help people transition from the head to the heart really through this process. And I mean, to this day, people that went through that group, every time I see them or talk to them, they're like, do you remember that, her name? And they'd say her name. Do you remember how amazing that was? And truly, yeah, it was transformational to watch her.
I wanted to go back and talk more about the abilities that come online, like yourself. When you started to do this, it opens us up to other dimensions, other multidimensional frequencies of ourself.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been able to pinpoint it? It's like, how do you explain what's going on here? We have this trauma or this experience that's in the body, but when we're done with that, that opens us up to something so much more.
That, yeah, what you just said, I resonate with that. The words I like to use with my students are, when you shine the light of your awareness in a cave, the bats come out. So it's like, the trauma is when you get in your body and you commit to that, it's actually pretty difficult, because all the trauma that you maybe weren't aware of before, it starts to make itself known in all sorts of ways. But like you were saying, once it is cleared and integrated, that's when, for myself, I can only speak for me, but that's when the intuitive ability started to come online, because more of my soul aspect, I should say, was available to receive that. So that's how it's working for a lot of people.
Yes, it sounds like it's a higher self connection.
Yes.
That connection is strengthened. So, can you share a little bit more about your intuitive abilities? Because so many times in our natural everyday life, we are intuitive, but sometimes we override that. I think it's so easy to override it. How did you develop yours or the trust in your intuition?
So I had some religious trauma to overcome first, obviously, because I was programmed to give my power away really to something outside of me. So that was a big thing that I needed to clear and heal. And really how they started to come online was by accident, to be honest. Like I would be feeling things that my clients were actually feeling before they got in to my office. And I started to recognize that I was actually creating some kind of like a portal, or something was happening that I wasn't consciously doing. And so from there, I learned how to set boundaries. I learned how to clear my field and recognize what was mine and not mine. So it was definitely a process over probably the last 7 years or so, really worked on that. Most of the time, the individuals that are drawn to that are already opening to their intuitive abilities, but they don't know what to do with it. Don't have a clue. I just had a woman, she's a nurse practitioner, and she's having a spiritual awakening, and she's in my program, and she's like, I started picking up on stuff from my client. I don't know what to do with it. So there's a lot of shame I've noticed around that. And so normalizing it is important.
It's beautiful that you're working with people in the medical industry that are going to be using this in that program. We truly are a bridge to that. So we're going to start seeing more of this in the medical profession. It really is beautiful. When we clear the trauma and we work with our intuition, we can see things about ourselves, like even past lives, right? Have you experienced that as well?
Oh
There's
yeah.
deeper knowingness, right?
Yeah, it is. It feels like what's the word? Like a soul retrieval of some kind needs to happen sometimes, of all these different. I mean, it's interesting. We talked about archetypes, but sometimes past lives feel like these archetypes that come in for healing. And it's like, oh, that's an aspect of me that I played out in this other lifetime. And yeah, they definitely show up for healing. Yep.
So what would you say about those who may get concerned that you have to hang out in that trauma or try to figure out the why of the trauma? Do you find that we can move through it quickly by just giving it a voice?
Yes, 100%. That's a big part of what I feel is crumbling in the mental health profession, is people have done just talk therapy for years. And actually, there's studies now that show that talk therapy re-traumatizes people at times, because your subconscious doesn't know the difference between past, present, future. So you're having someone relive it and try and figure things out, but that keeps them in the trauma by trying to fix something that you can't fix because it doesn't exist. It's not in the present. So,
For those who may have physical diagnosis or issues or pain, have you had experiences that you've witnessed of people clearing through that or healing the body?
oh yes, and I can speak just on for myself. I've healed low back pain. I had PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and cleared all of that as of last year. Um, just through doing what I feel anyway is from doing the shadow work. There's nothing else in my life. I wasn't really doing a whole lot of other things, and just the trauma stored in that area of my body, for me, it cleared the physical symptoms. And that's not to say that that will always happen for people, but I know it's possible.
It's a holistic approach to everything in our life. So if someone is experiencing, let's say, relationship issues in a family or extended family, this is something that can be worked through as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because our relationship, if as we deepen our relationship with ourselves and become more, I call it more securely attached in our own relationship to ourselves, then our relationships automatically become a reflection of our relationship to self. So, I mean, it's interesting. People go to couples therapy or family therapy, but it sometimes feels like a little bit of like a bypass of really going inward and doing their work. And then everything is kind of secondary after that.
Yes, I would think that the notion of self love or our ability to give self love is really an important feature or a result of doing this work.
Absolutely.
Agree? Yeah.
Yeah. And also like self compassion being part of the work as you're doing it. It's actually really difficult, but needed. Yeah.
What do you find keeps people from their self love or self compassion?
I have noticed that fear for, I know it doesn't make logical sense, but for some reason, people are afraid to give themselves that love, that compassion. And a lot of times it comes from being afraid that it will be taken from them, or somehow it makes them unsafe or unprotected or vulnerable. Um, yeah, it's a common thing. Yeah.
You also do private one on one sessions with people, and we're going to make that available as well in the special offer that's right here on this webpage. Tell us about a personal session with people.
I take them through the 3 phases in a pretty short period of time, but it up levels their profession, like their work, their professional life, gets them just in alignment with where they're maybe not in alignment. I also offer just one-on-one, just one-time sessions called insight sessions. And those are intuitive, like I suppose you could call them attunements, but they're intuitive readings that I do for people and also help attune their energy centers and energy in the body.
Wow, that sounds very interesting. So, as we read the energy of our body, can you describe where we begin to do or how we begin to do that?
Mm. I would say for someone that is just wanting to get into this practice of being more in the body, just committing to, I would say 2 minutes a day, set a timer and close your eyes and actually do the body scan that I did a little bit earlier in our recording, but the body scan, just scan your body from the top of your head slowly using the exhale and just be a witness to what is in your body. Just be a witness, no fixing, just witnessing.
No fixing, really understanding that there's nothing to fix or that we're not broken.
Yep.
And isn't it powerful, the awareness, just that awareness of recognizing that feeling in our body? That is a large majority of the work. How much of a percentage out of 100 would you say that that is of doing the work?
Oh, that's most of it, 99, 90%. The
Yes.
people, the brain wants to say that that's not enough, right? The brain wants to say, you have to do work. And yeah, no.
Isn't that where we go quantum?
Yes. Yeah, totally.
That you are on a mission to bring people to their new earth authenticity.
Yes. I hope so. That's my goal.
Great. All right. Well, in what you offer, you've got your personal one on one session, but then there's something that you're offering that goes deeper into what you offer for intuition and how we develop that and use that as a therapeutic tool.
Yeah, I have a 3 hour pre-recorded, and you also can get CEUs. If you want 3 hours of CEUs and you need them, you can also get them from this webinar. And I go into how to help not only yourself, but your clients begin to trust their intuition and what intuition actually is, and really kind of like demystifying and grounding this idea of intuition. People think it's like only for some people out here, and it's actually always here. It's with us all the time. We just don't recognize it. So yeah, that's what I like to teach. I just feel like we're all walking each other home. And this offering, Yothera Method, is really, it's a tool that I hope will help people find each other and will just add to bringing, like you said, new earth here and be a ground or a bridge for that.
Again, living in the heart and being heart-centered is the way forward. So as you look at New Earth and with this method, what do you see for our future? Are you optimistic?
Oh yeah, very. Yeah, it's already here. We're just clearing all the things that are an illusion. So yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
as we were saying earlier about the archetypes, it really does feel like that those are coming up now to be cleared and this programming within ourselves. And so when we look out at the world and we see something that doesn't sit right, that right there is an indicator to go inward and use this method, right? Because that's how we would understand that, wow, maybe that aspect is if I don't like something, the way a person is being treated, if I trace it back enough with a method like this, we're going to realize that that was within us.
Yes. Yeah. We can't project anymore. When we have awareness, one of those defense mechanisms is projection, is project what I don't want to see within me onto you or onto whoever. And it's like, it's a way of really keeping yourself in check. Yeah.
And keeping yourself really clean and clear and pure, because when we do that, it opens us up to all of those higher frequencies of who we truly are. So we commend you for the beautiful work that you're doing to do the shadow work in the body.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jessica Maitri, for this beautiful experience today. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.